Welcome to some new r/malicious compliance stories, where people comply to the letter, but not the spirit of a request. I hope you had a great day. The first story is called Spotless Cleaning. At the time, I was an apprentice in a big rig workshop. We had an audit come through, so the place had to be cleaned up to a standard and never upheld the other 364 days of the year, because no one cleaned after themselves. It took me and my fellow apprentices 3 whole days. On the last day, my task was to tidy up around the gates, meaning sweeping and removing the trash in the corners. There were 24 of them, each 5 meters tall, sectioned into something like 30 individual window panels. There were cobwebs on them, and I briefly wondered if I should remove them. I decided not to, because the whole place was full of cobwebs and we had not been asked to remove them anywhere else. Also, it would have taken me quite a bit of time to do that, and I figured there were probably more important things to be done still. I was wrong. Half an hour before closing, the guy responsible for us apprentices came up to me and asked why I hadn't removed the cobwebs. I explained and said I could still grab a broom and do it. He wanted me to use the vacuum cleaner instead and make sure all the panels were spotless. Now, my work pays overtime. I had nothing going on that afternoon. So I grabbed the vacuum, a ladder, an extension cord and some racks and window cleaner and got to work. An hour after closing, I was about halfway done, when the workshop manager came up to me and sort of awkwardly told me he had had a talk with the aforementioned guy and I could go home. I smiled at him, broadly, and said I could never leave my job only halfway finished. I cleaned for another 1.5 hours. At the end of the month, I happily pocketed the extra 2.5 hours of pay and was never asked to clean cobwebs ever again. Also, the guys doing the audit spent a whopping 5 minutes inside the workshop and the rest of their time going through the books, so I doubt they would have even noticed. The next story is called No Day Off. I work in sales. I make a base paycheck, but the vast majority comes from commission. So when we stop working, the entire company stops making money, and so do we. Direct correlation. My job messed up. They planned to give us December 23rd through January 2nd off, with pay. But the first email they sent said December 22nd. So yesterday, when my whole team clocked in, we found out the day had meant we had to work through the 22nd. So everyone who used their last PTO on Monday and Tuesday to leave for a full 2 weeks suddenly found they had to come in on Wednesday as well, use PTO they didn't have left or take a disciplinary day. So we all clocked in this morning and just sat there. The manager on duty looked us in the eye and said, I told them we should have honored the first email. I don't care if you don't do anything all day. Have a great holiday. And since it's work from home, I clocked in, watched TV and did some holiday baking. Clocked out at the end of the day. I'd rather be written up for low productivity than for being absent, since they can't dock my pay for 1 day of low productivity. The third story is called No Lights Allowed. Years ago, when my wife and I had purchased a home, the builder had told us it might be part of an HOA, depending on how many homes they are ultimately constructed. We were among the first 5 buyers. So we pretty much had free rein to change what we wanted via permissions from the builders, that those changes would be added to what was turned over to the HOA. And for as long as we lived there, the changes could stay. The one change we did was add a motion security light on the back of our fence, cause my neighbor's kids would smoke stuff there. I didn't want to smell it sitting on my patio or when I had the windows open on nice evenings. Well, my neighbor refused to believe her kid would be doing that, even though it didn't point towards any other home, just the grass between my fence and the woods. It kept the kids from smoking stuff there without calling the cops on something so foolish and petty. But since it was cleared from the builder, she couldn't do anything. Well, 6 months later, we ended up with an HOA, and she makes it priority number 1 to get the lights removed. Several other neighbors followed what I did, whose homes faced the wooded area. The requirement to get it changed, since they were builder approved, was 80% of the community. But the only votes to keep came from those of us on the back of the property. So we have to remove them, being permanent changes. Not even 3 days later, her kid is again back there, smoking stuff. The HOA countered that I should just call the police non-emergency number. But that is absolutely stupid to risk messing up some kid's life when that's an issue his parents, who remember don't believe he does it, should deal with. So now I'm pretty livid. This North American land whale cried to the point I had to remove her sheep and non-disruptive fix. She refused to be a parent and keep her kid from impeding on us. So it's time for me to be petty. The next day, after her kid first went back there, I go out and buy a 12 feet section of 4x4. Wire, concrete, a large planter and 3 floodlights. I essentially built a mini portable stadium light setup, rigged to the motion sensor. So whenever anyone passed by my fence, instead of being a small area immediately behind my house lit up, the sun came out to the woods with one light giving her home an X-ray. The first time her kid went back there, it was glorious. I got a picture of him with his stuff in hand before he skirted off, so I could show her proof. And it sent her through the roof getting those 3 X-rays. I showed her the picture and she still didn't care, saying if it goes off again she will call the police. I was fine with it, cause I told her they'd see the same picture I'd just shown her. In reality they wouldn't, but she didn't know that, and I didn't expect her to try to call my bluff, which she never did. She just complained to the HOA. A lot. In the morning time, I'd lay the contraption down so it couldn't be seen and raise it up after it got dark. About a week after this, I get a summons to the HOA meeting that happens that week. And since it was disciplinary for my contraption, the lawyer was there and they want to hear the case. So I lay everything out from the builder too. Pictures showing how the original light didn't shine any brighter than the one on her porch and couldn't be seen from inside the homes. Her vendetta to change the HOA rules to suit what she wanted. And 3 of the other 5 neighbors who had to remove their security lights were also there to argue for getting them back when I went. After about 40 minutes the lawyer comes back and pretty much said, well, Mr. and Mrs., you are right. This isn't a permanent structure, so it technically is allowed. But you can't have a light facing her property any longer. In addition, by the 1st of next month you will all be allowed to reinstall your smaller lights, as they did provide a measure of security that benefits the property as a whole. So she was blessed with another week of the sun on her pole and being mad about it. Those of us who lived facing the woods got our lights back. And after reselling the lights, I made most of the money that I spent back. It was absolutely worth spending the few $100 to out-petty a bad parent and insufferable neighbor. The last story is called Come to Pick It Up. My RA at my university recently confiscated some stuff of mine that she claimed was not in compliance with housing guidelines. RAs do a once a semester inspection of apartments to check for compliance with policy and law. The apartment handbook specifically states that RAs will not seize property, however will issue fines. But that didn't stop the 2 RAs from taking a guitar amp and extension cord. These items were sitting unplugged, making them in accordance. I obviously argued with my RA and her assistant quite a bit. At this point she was threatening to impose more fines for arguing and would call campus police for being disorderly. So I said whatever and let her go with the intent of getting my stuff back somehow. I started by calling the housing office to express my grievances over the obvious theft, but they promptly told me to listen to my RA. I then called campus police, who said the same thing. Since the local departments rewrote calls to the campus police, I couldn't get the police to help. My RA sent me a message saying if I would swing by her door and fill out the proper paperwork I could get it back. I said I wasn't home, but would when I got back. So I knocked on her door at 4 AM. She opened it and was extremely tired and confused as to why I was there. So I told her I had just gotten back to school after driving home and was ready to do paperwork. She handed me her paper and a packet to sign. The paper was an acknowledgement of my fine. The packet was the entire housing policy, which she told me to read through and sign that I have read. She told me I could turn them in tomorrow for my stuff, to which I responded, no, it's okay, I don't mind. Then I read through the entire 25-page packet in front of her, taking my sweet time, then gave it back signed. After which she carried that heavy amp and cord to the door and gave it to me. And with that, we end today's video. Let me know what you think about the stories. On a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate the stories and today's video? I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please don't forget to subscribe and hit the like button. And I hope you have a great holiday time. Stay safe. Bye bye.